The rain is falling softly tonight, just like it was the night everything began. I'm sitting here in the dark, listening to it tap against the window, and I keep thinking about how easy it is to build a beautiful lie, how you can draw the plans, measure every angle, and convince everyone, including yourself, that the house is solid. My name is David Miller. I'm 41 years old now. And tonight, if you're lying in bed with the lights off, maybe the rain is keeping you company too. I'm going to tell you the truth I've never told anyone. The real story. Not the one I told Sarah. Not the one I told our friends. Not the one I told myself for years. This is the story of how I became the architect of my own lies. How I built a perfect family on a foundation that was rotten from the start. How I promised to love a little boy like my own, and then spent years proving I never meant it. Get comfortable. Pull the blanket up a little higher. This one is long. This one is slow. This one carries a lot of regret. But it also carries the beginning of something I never expected, guilt. Soft rain sounds fade in gently. I met Sarah at a charity gala downtown Chicago. It was one of those black tie events where everyone smiles too much and talks about helping the less fortunate while drinking $1,000 champagne. I was there because my company was a sponsor. I was 34, successful, single, and very good at looking like the kind of man people trusted. Sarah was standing near the balcony doors, holding a glass of white wine she hadn't touched. She was breathtaking, tall, elegant, with dark hair that fell just past her shoulders. But there was a quiet sadness in her eyes that made her look fragile, like she was holding the world together with nothing but grace. I found out later that her first husband, a pilot named Michael, had died in a plane crash 3 years earlier. He left her alone with their 4-year-old son, Leo. I didn't fall in love with her that night. I saw an opportunity. I saw a beautiful, grieving widow who needed someone to rescue her. I saw the image of the perfect family I had always wanted to project. I saw a ready-made life that would look good on paper. So I walked over. We talked for almost an hour. She told me about Michael. She told me about Leo. Her voice was soft when she spoke about her son, but I could hear the exhaustion underneath. Single mom, grieving widow, trying to hold everything together. I listened like I cared. I touched her arm gently when she mentioned the crash. I looked her in the eyes and said, "You've been carrying a lot alone. You deserve someone who wants to carry it with you." I lied with the precision of an architect drawing blueprints. Every word was carefully measured. A month later, I asked her out for coffee, then dinner, then weekend trips. During our courtship, I played the role of the perfect savior. I remember one Saturday afternoon at her house. Leo was playing with his toy planes in the backyard. He was 5 then, small, quiet, still carrying the weight of losing his dad. I sat on the porch with Sarah, watching him. I took her hand and whispered, "Sarah, I don't see a stepson. I see a son. I promise you, I will love him as if he were my own blood. My home will be his sanctuary." She cried when I said that. She believed me. I believed me too for a moment. We got married 8 months later. It was a small, elegant ceremony. Leo stood beside me in a tiny tuxedo, holding the ring pillow. Everyone said we looked like the perfect family. I built that image brick by brick. The first few months of marriage were easy. I was charming. I was attentive. I bought Leo new toys. I read him bedtime stories. I told Sarah every day how lucky I was to have both of them. But inside, something was already shifting. I wanted my own child, a real heir, someone who carried the Miller name by blood, someone who would look like me. I never said it out loud, but the thought was always there, quiet and patient, like the foundation of a house no one else could see. When Sarah told me she was pregnant with our son, I felt something I had never felt before, pure, uncomplicated joy. We named him Cooper. From the moment Cooper was born, everything changed. I told myself it was natural. I told myself every father feels a special bond with their biological child. But the truth was simpler and uglier. I loved Cooper in a way I never loved Leo. Leo was 4 when Cooper was born. He was excited to be a big brother. He wanted to hold Cooper, help feed him, sing him songs. I watched them together and felt nothing. I was polite to Leo. I bought him things. I took him to soccer practice. But the warmth, the real love, the deep, instinctive pull I felt when I looked at Cooper, that was missing with Leo. Sarah noticed. She never said it directly, but I saw the way her eyes tightened when I would pick Cooper up first, when I would praise Cooper more loudly, when I would let Leo wait while I comforted his baby brother. I told myself I was being fair. I told myself I was treating them equally. But I was. I was the architect of the line. And I kept building. Cooper was a Miller. He was mine. Blood. Bone. Legacy. Leo. Leo was just a reminder of a man who came before me. A glitch in my perfect design. The bias didn't start with shouting or cruelty. It started small, quiet, almost invisible. But once it began, it built a wall so thick no one could see through it anymore. The first clear morning I remember was a Saturday when Cooper was only 6 weeks old. I was in the kitchen making breakfast. I fried organic eggs and crispy bacon for Cooper's mother, Sarah. I even made a small portion of scrambled eggs for the baby, though he was too young to eat them. I was humming. I felt complete. Leo walked in, rubbing his eyes, still in his dinosaur pajamas. He was 6 years old. He climbed onto the stool at the counter and said quietly, Can I have some eggs too, David? I didn't even look up from the pan. I kept my eyes on Cooper's bottle warming in the machine and said, "Cereal is in the pantry, Leo. You're old enough to pour your own milk. Stop hovering." I heard him pause. Then the sound of the stool, legs scraping as he got down. The clink of the cereal box. The pour of milk. I didn't turn around. That was the first time I said it out loud. But it wasn't the last. The living room became another battlefield. Cooper's toys, expensive motorized cars, wooden blocks with his name engraved, soft plush animals, were allowed to stay scattered across the floor. I would step over them and smile. Sarah would laugh and say, "He's just a baby." But if Leo left even a single Lego on the carpet, I would stop whatever I was doing and say in a cold, flat voice, "This isn't a playground for your clutter, Leo. Pick it up or it's going in the trash. Have some respect for the house I pay for." I watched him pick up each piece slowly. His small shoulders hunched. I told myself I was teaching him responsibility. I told myself I was being a good stepfather. I was lying to myself again. Bedtime became the hardest part. When Cooper cried at night, I would get up immediately. I would rock him, sing to him, change his diaper. Whatever it took. Sarah would wake up and see me holding our son with so much tenderness. She would smile sleepily and say, "You're such a good dad." But when Leo had a nightmare and came to our door, I would sigh loudly and say, "Go back to bed, Leo. You're 6 years old. Big boys don't need to sleep with us." Sometimes Sarah would get up and comfort him. I would lie there pretending to be asleep, feeling a quiet satisfaction that she had to leave our bed because of him. School events made the difference even sharper. When Leo had his first grade play, I told Sarah I had an important meeting. I didn't go. When Cooper had his preschool graduation, I closed my laptop, put on a nice shirt, and sat in the front row taking videos. I clapped the loudest when his name was called. Leo never said anything about it, but I saw the way he looked at me when I came home that night holding Cooper's paper diploma like it was a trophy. The comparisons kept growing. At dinner, I would serve Cooper first. I would cut his chicken into small pieces. I would ask him how his day was. Leo would sit quietly and eat whatever was left. If Leo asked for seconds, I would say, "You've had enough. Save some for your brother." If Cooper wanted seconds, I would smile and say, "Of course, buddy. Here you go." Sarah started to notice. She would gently say things like, "David, can you help Leo with his homework tonight?" Or, "Leo really wanted you to watch his soccer game." I would nod and say, "Sure," but I rarely followed through. I told myself I was just more bonded with Cooper because he was my biological son. It was natural. Everyone understood that. But the truth was uglier. I didn't want Leo. I never really had. I only wanted the image of the perfect family. And Leo was the piece that didn't fit my blueprint. One evening, when Leo was 8 and Cooper was 2, we were all in the living room. Cooper was playing with his expensive toy truck. Leo was quietly building something with his old Legos in the corner. Cooper knocked over a tower Leo had been working on for an hour. Leo looked hurt but didn't say anything. I immediately picked Cooper up, kissed his head and said, "It's okay, buddy. Daddy will buy you a new truck if that one broke." I didn't even look at Leo. That night, after the boys were in bed, Sarah finally spoke up. "David, you treat Leo differently." "I see it. He sees it." I looked at her with a calm face and said, "I treat them both fairly, Sarah. Cooper is younger. He needs more attention right now. Leo is old enough to understand." She didn't argue, but I saw the disappointment in her eyes. I went to bed that night feeling justified. I was the provider. I paid for the big house. I paid for the private school. I paid for the vacations. Leo should be grateful. That's what I told myself. But deep down, in the quiet moments when the rain fell like it is tonight, I knew the truth. I had never loved Leo. Not really. I had only pretended to. And the wall I was building between us was getting higher every single day. The worst days were the Sundays when my friends came over for football. Those were the days I felt most like the man I wanted to be. The successful architect, the provider, the king of my perfect suburban castle. Every Sunday during football season, 4 or 5 of my buddies would show up. We'd grill wings, drink beer, and yell at the TV in the living room. Sarah would smile politely and stay in the kitchen. But I loved those afternoons. They gave me the perfect stage to show off the life I had built. I would parade Cooper around like a trophy. He was only 3 then, but I already had him in a tiny Miller jersey with my last name on the back. I'd lift him up in front of everyone and say loudly, "Look at this guy. Miller jeans, boys. You can already see the athletic potential. He's gonna be a star." My friends would laugh and clap. They'd ruffle Cooper's hair and tell me what a great dad I was. Leo would sit quietly in the corner of the couch, trying so hard to fit in. He was 9 years old. He would watch the game, laugh when everyone laughed, and sometimes try to join the conversation. But I made sure he stayed in his place. I remember one specific Sunday afternoon that still burns in my memory. It was early in the season. The Bears were playing. The house smelled like buffalo wings and beer. My friends were loud and happy. Cooper was running around in his little jersey, giggling every time someone high-fived him. Leo was sitting on the floor near the coffee table. He had been quiet all afternoon. He reached out slowly toward the big platter of wings in the middle of the table. I saw his hand before it even touched the food. I swatted it away hard enough that the sound echoed. Easy there, champ, I said loudly, making sure everyone heard. Those are for the guests. Why don't you go upstairs and finish your homework? You're not exactly a natural athlete like Cooper, so you better at least be smart. The room went completely silent. I could feel the shift in the air. My friends looked uncomfortable. One of them forced a small laugh, trying to break the tension. Leo froze. His hand was still hovering in the air where I had slapped it. His face turned red. He didn't cry. He just looked down at the carpet, stood up slowly, and walked upstairs without saying a word. Sarah was standing in the doorway to the kitchen. She stared at me with pure horror in her eyes. For the first time, I saw something close to disgust on her face. I just shrugged and took a sip of my beer. What? I said casually. He needs to learn boundaries. He can't just take whatever he wants. The game continued. Everyone tried to act normal again, but the laughter never quite returned to the same level. That night, after everyone left, Sarah finally spoke to me in the bedroom. David, that was cruel. He's just a little boy. I looked at her calmly and said, I'm teaching him responsibility, Sarah. Life isn't fair. He needs to understand that. She didn't argue. She just turned away and went to check on Leo. After that day, I started calling him the guest whenever Sarah wasn't around. Hey guest, go mow the lawn. Cooper and I are going to the lake. Hey guest, make sure you finish your chores before dinner. Cooper and I are going to get ice cream. Hey guest, why don't you eat in your room tonight? We're having a father-son movie night. Leo never fought back. He would just nod quietly and do what I asked. Sometimes I would catch him looking at me with those big, sad eyes. But he never complained to Sarah. I enjoyed the power. I enjoyed watching him shrink. I enjoyed reminding him every single day that this was my house, my family, and he was only a visitor. The wall between us grew taller. I stopped pretending when we were alone. I would walk past him in the hallway without speaking. If he tried to show me a drawing from school, I would glance at it quickly and say, "That's nice. Go show your mother." Cooper, on the other hand, could do no wrong. If he spilled juice on the carpet, I would laugh and say, "It's okay, buddy. Accidents happen." If Leo spilled anything, I would sigh loudly and say, "Clean it up. You know better." Sarah tried to talk to me more than once. She would say things like, "Leo is part of this family, David." I would always reply the same way. "Of course he is. I treat him fairly." But we both knew I was lying. The lies were so well designed that even I almost believed them. Until the night everything started to crack. It happened on a Sunday. My mother, Evelyn, had driven down from Vermont to stay with us for the weekend. She always came twice a year, once in spring and once in fall. She said it was to see the boys, but I knew she really came to check on me, to make sure the perfect Miller family she bragged about to her friends was still standing. I insisted on a formal dinner that night. White linen tablecloth, good china, candles, the whole thing. I wanted everything to look right. I wanted my mother to see that I had built the kind of home my father would have been proud of. Sarah had cooked a roast with all the sides. The boys were dressed nicely. Cooper in a little button-up shirt, Leo in the polo I had bought him for school pictures. We sat down at the big oak table in the dining room. The rain was starting outside again, soft and steady against the windows. Everything was calm for the first 10 minutes. Then Leo reached for the pitcher of water and accidentally knocked over his glass of red wine. The dark red liquid spilled across the white linen like blood. I exploded. For God's sake, Leo. My voice was loud and sharp. Can you do one thing right? Go to your room, now no dinner. Leo froze. His small hand was still hovering where the glass had been. His eyes went wide. Sarah stood up so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. Her face was flushed with anger. He's a child, David. It was an accident. Why do you treat him like he's an intruder in his own home? The words came out of me before I could stop them. I pointed my finger straight at her. Because he is an intruder. The room went completely silent. I kept going, my voice rising. I'm tired of pretending. Cooper is my son. He has my blood. Leo is just a guest. I pay for his life, but I don't owe him a father's love. And I'm done letting him call me Dad. It's a lie, and we both know it. Leo's eyes filled with tears. He didn't say a word. He just pushed his chair back, stood up, and ran upstairs. I heard his bedroom door close quietly behind him. Sarah stared at me like I was a stranger she no longer recognized. Her mouth was slightly open, but no words came out. The only sound was the rain against the windows. Then I looked at my mother. Evelyn wasn't crying. She wasn't yelling. She just sat there with her hands folded in her lap, looking at me with a mixture of horror and deep, quiet shame. It was the kind of look that cuts deeper than any shout. David, she said, her voice low and trembling. Come into the study, we need to talk, alone. I followed her. I was still angry, still full of self-righteous fire. I thought she was going to lecture me about manners, or how to speak to children in front of guests. I was wrong. As soon as the study door clicked shut behind us, she turned to face me. How could you say those things? She whispered. How could you be so cruel about bloodlines? I laughed a short, dry sound. Because blood matters, Mom. Dad taught me that. I'm a Miller. Cooper is a Miller. That kid upstairs is. You are not a Miller, David. The world stopped. I laughed again, but this time it sounded hollow. What are you talking about? My mother took a slow, shaky breath. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't look away. I was already pregnant when I met your father, Jim. Your biological father was a boy I knew in college. He left as soon as he found out I was expecting. He didn't want anything to do with us. Jim knew everything from the very beginning. He married me anyway. He signed your birth certificate knowing you weren't his blood. He spent 35 years raising you as his own son, loving you like you were his flesh and blood. I felt the air leave the room. My legs went weak. I had to grab the edge of the old mahogany desk, the desk my father had left me in his will. Mom's voice stayed quiet but steady. He loved you because he chose to David, not because of DNA. He was 10 times the man you are being right now. He built a life for you on a foundation of love, even though you weren't his by blood. And here you are, tearing a little boy apart for the exact same reason. She looked at me for a long moment, then turned and walked out of the study, closing the door softly behind her. I stood there alone in the dark. On the wall were framed photos, me and Dad fishing at the lake when I was 10. Me and Dad at my high school graduation. Me and Dad on the porch the day I bought my first house. Every single memory was a gift from a man who didn't owe me anything, yet gave me everything. And upstairs, there was a 9-year-old boy I had just destroyed, for the exact same reason I was never destroyed. I sat down in the chair behind the desk and put my head in my hands. For the first time in years, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. The study was silent after my mother walked out. The air felt thick, like it was vibrating with everything she had just said. I sat there staring at my hands, the same hands that had built houses, signed contracts, and swatted a little boy's hand away from a plate of wings in front of everyone. I thought I was a king. Turns out I was just a commoner who had been saved by a king's mercy. I didn't go back to the dinner table. I couldn't face Sarah. I couldn't face the empty chair where Leo should have been sitting. Instead, I walked up the stairs. Every step felt heavy, like the name Miller I had carried so proudly for years was now made of lead. I stopped in front of Leo's bedroom door. For years, I had walked past this room like it was just another storage closet. Tonight it felt like a courtroom. I knocked. Softly. "Leo, can I come in?" There was a long silence. Then I heard the bed creak. The door opened just a crack. Leo stood there in his pajamas, eyes red, face tight with the defensive mask I had forced him to wear for years. "I'm sorry about the wine, sir," he whispered. "I'll pay for the cleaning with my allowance." The words, "sir," hit me harder than any punch. I realized in that moment I hadn't just denied him my love. I had robbed him of his home. "No, Leo," I said, my voice cracking. "You don't owe me anything." I didn't sit in the chair. I sat down on the floor right there in the hallway, so I was at his eye level. I was wrong about everything. I said some things downstairs that they were monstrous. I was obsessed with a lie about what makes a family. He didn't hug me. He didn't forgive me. He just stood there watching me with wary, confused eyes. I didn't deserve a hug yet. I knew that. Over the next few months, I didn't try to buy his love with gifts or sudden kindness. I knew that would just be another one of my architect tricks. Instead, I did what my father Jim had done for me. I showed up. I stopped taking only Cooper to the construction sites. I started bringing Leo too. I gave him his own hard hat, a real one, yellow, with his name printed on the front, Leo Miller. Not the guest, not Sarah's son, just Leo Miller. At first he was quiet. He would follow me around the site, holding my tools, watching everything I did. One afternoon he asked softly, "Can I help measure this wall?" I handed him the tape measure and said, "Yeah, buddy, let's do it together." Sarah noticed the change. She didn't trust it right away, but she saw me apologizing to her in front of Leo when we argued. She saw me sitting at the kitchen table, helping him with homework, instead of disappearing into my office. The real turning point came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, months later. Leo was working on a model bridge project for school. He was frustrated. The balsa wood kept breaking. He was ready to throw the whole thing across the room. I sat down on the floor next to him. "You know, Leo," I said quietly, "foundations are the hardest part. If the base isn't solid, the whole thing falls apart. I spent a long time building my life on a foundation of sand." He looked at me, then back at the broken bridge. "Is that why you were so mean before? Because your foundation was wrong." I felt my throat tighten. "Exactly," I said. "But I'm trying to pour a new one now. With you." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he reached out and handed me the bottle of wood glue. It was such a small gesture, but it was the first time he had asked for my help without being told to. I looked up and saw my mother standing in the doorway, watching us. She had a sad, knowing smile on her face. I thought about Jim, the man who raised me even though I wasn't his blood. He didn't give me his DNA, but he gave me a life. He didn't give me his blood, but he gave me his character. I realized then that an architect's real job isn't just building walls. Sometimes the most important work is tearing them down. I looked at Leo, then at Cooper, who came running into the room wanting to join us. I didn't see a stepson and a real son anymore. I just saw my boys. "Hey, Dad," Leo asked, hesitant. I froze. It had been a long time since he had last called me Dad, since that terrible night at dinner. "Yeah, Leo. Can we finish the bridge together?" I nodded, my eyes stinging. "Yeah, son. Let's build something that lasts."